So one of the most common and reliable indicators that we've got emotional repression in our bodies from childhood is that we find ourselves arguing for our own limitations. As the saying goes, when we argue for our own limitations, we're right every time. But why do we do it? What are the mechanics of it? And how do we stop? Think of it this way if you'd like. Emotional repression is a mechanism in our bodies left over from childhood that pushes down certain emotions and energies for safety, and it's basically saying it's not okay to be yourself. It's like an innocent security system, because if we were to have expressed those certain energies and emotions in childhood, bad things might have happened. So it's not okay to be yourself is the original argument for limitation. Then as we get older, we start to take on what we call identities, which are really just stories about ourselves that we tell ourselves. They can be as seemingly benign as I'm an American, or I'm a son, or I'm a musician, right? They're just concepts. But they already start to reinforce our repression because they line up with that original impulse of it's not okay to be yourself. You have to be an American or a son or a musician, see? This is the birth of the ego, or the false mind-made sense of self, whose job it is to keep us believing things about ourselves so we don't have to access the repressed emotions that are buried in the body. And then the big guns come out. As adults, as we suffer more, as a result of the ego, we start to look for solutions in a lot of different places. Maybe it's in spirituality, or therapy, or religion, or recovery, or belief systems, or drugs and alcohol. Meanwhile, we still have the mechanism that says you can't be yourself and the buried repressed emotions in our bodies that are driving our suffering. But now we start to find solutions in all of these paradigms, right? Oh, I'm an addict. Oh, I'm bipolar. Oh, I have OCD. Oh, I'm sinful, or I'm fallen. That's what's wrong with me. I've been through this several times, and there really is a certain sense of relief that comes when you seem to find out the answer to the question, what's wrong with me? And in the healing paradigm, along with that answer usually comes a solution or a path forward. But do you see the big miss here? These are more concepts that I'm adding to myself. I'm an addict and I have to get clean. I'm bipolar and I have to take meds. I'm OCD, so I have to do mindfulness. I'm fallen, so I have to get saved, right? I have to start believing things about myself, which causes my suffering in the first place, so that I can get free of my suffering, right? So now I have to suffer so I don't have to suffer. I have to argue for my own limitations. Now I can already hear people saying, well, that's exactly what you're doing, Dan. You're suggesting that people believe that they're emotionally repressed and that that's driving their suffering and that they can come out of that with emotional repression work, right? No, that's not what we're doing. We're not asking anyone to believe anything. In fact, it's better if you don't believe what I'm saying. That would be more programming that would likely compound your suffering. No, don't believe it. Check the body, test your experience to see if there actually are buried emotions that are down there driving your suffering. This work, it's so experiential. We only talk about it theoretically or in context because we have to talk about it somehow. We have to communicate it. But people take that for what the work is. Like it's a theory. Forget the theory. Theories are the problem. Check and test your body and your experience so you can find out what's actually going on that's driving your suffering. But here's the funny thing about that. People already have their own theories and concepts like we talked about earlier. So when something new is offered, like, hey, check and test your body for emotional repression, they go, nope, I'm an addict, I'm bipolar, I'm OCD, I'm fallen, right? They're already arguing for their own suffering and they don't even know it. My friend and the co-developer of the Killaby Inquiries, Scott Killaby, when we were developing the tools, he started having really intense back pain, like really bad. He got suicidal. This back pain, spine pain turned into spinal stenosis. And during that, he was really convinced, understandably, that this is a physical thing happening to me. It's physiological, right? So I didn't know, but in the spirit of inquiry and curiosity, I said to him, well, is it possible that that could be emotional, that could have its roots in buried emotions, your back pain? And he got really triggered, but here's the beauty of it. He used that exact trigger in inquiry to access the buried anger that was causing and driving his back pain in the first place, and he resolved it. He stopped arguing for his suffering in that moment. He used the argument or the trigger to get free of what was causing his suffering. It's unreal. And this actually was the genesis of KI, emotional repression work. So if this triggers you, consider that it's because you're in repression and arguing for your own limitations. And if it jazzes you, visit repressiontest.com.